should also be posting on our Facebook Live page as well. So today we're going to discuss TMS therapy and conquering depression. And we're very lucky today because we have a very special guest. Holly O'Connor from Hot 1015 is going to be my guest today. She's actually been going through TMS treatment and has been speaking about her experience. So we thought it would be good to bring her on to our YouTube channel here and talk with her a little bit about how TMS has been for her and how her experience has been. So we'll be getting to that a little bit later. First of all, I want to kind of go over some basics about TMS again. We may have some new viewers. It's been a few weeks since we've done one of these YouTube live sessions, so I wanted to kind of go back over the treatment again for those people who may not be familiar with TMS. I want to remind everyone what the mission of this channel is. We're trying to spread information about mental health treatment, treatments available for anxiety and depression, and really trying to spread awareness of the new way that we're thinking about treatment for mental health these days in psychiatry, not just with medications and psychotherapy, which we've been doing for years, but the new technologies that are available like TMS treatment. So without further ado, I'd like to get into a few things about the background of TMS. Again, this might be a review for some of those who have been following along with our channel, but I think it's important to kind of understand a little bit of background if you're going to watch the interview that we're doing with Holly in a few minutes. So first of all, what is TMS treatment? Well, TMS is basically a treatment for depression that uses magnetic stimulation and magnetic pulses to stimulate specific areas of the brain that are out of sync in people who are depressed and anxious. So a lot of you guys have heard me talk about, our ideas about mental health, that, we used to think that mental health, people suffering from depression and anxiety, their brain was kind of like a bowl of soup and these neurotransmitters were out of sync or they were deficient. Nowadays, we've got new technology that has shown us that mental health disorders really are a series of almost like arrhythmias of the brain. There's certain areas of the brain that are out of sync in people who are suffering from depression, anxiety, and other mental health problems. And what TMS does is it directly targets these areas, gets them back in sync again, and it does so without side effects of medication. And really, in terms of medical risk, there's really no risk of TMS treatment. So it's kind of a different way to think about things, which is why we're doing all of these YouTube live videos, why we're trying to get on TV, on the radio, and try to educate people about TMS treatment, because a lot of people don't know that TMS has been FDA cleared since 2008. It's covered by every major medical insurance, including Medicare, and it has so been like for the last 3 to 5 years. But still, there are thousands of people walking around that have untreated anxiety and depression that may have tried psychotherapy, may have tried medications, may have tried all their alternative treatments. They may qualify for TMS through their insurance, and they still don't know that the treatment exists. So that's, our main mission at NeuroSpa is to get awareness out about TMS, how effective it is, how safe it is, and that it's a really great alternative for people who have struggled with depression or anxiety related to depression for years, and medications haven't worked and psychotherapy hasn't worked. So we've also talked about a little bit of the history of this treatment. Remember that all of this came about in the late 90s because functional MRI technology allowed us to map out these circuits in the brain that are out of sync. We were able to show that people who were depressed, when you put them in a functional MRI, their brain is actually functioning different than people who are not suffering from depression. And so we're able to use TMS to target that area and actually put the magnet over the area that's out of sync, stimulate that area directly, and then brain function returns to normal. And when you compare it to someone who's not depressed, the brain scan looks very much like someone who's not depressed. So again, the way that this works is that it uses a magnet kind of like an MRI magnet to generate these magnetic pulses. The magnet's, about the size of like a square on your head, about like this. And it just sits next to your head and generates these pulses. Sounds kind of like an MRI machine. You can feel a little bit of a tapping against your scalp. However, it's not painful. It's a little bit of scalp pain is listed as a side effect officially, But what you're able to do when you go to a TMS clinic like ours is you're able to start at a low dose and then work up to a higher dose as comfortable. That way, there's really no pain or discomfort associated with it. And again, all you're getting is magnetic pulses from this MRI like magnet. So you're not getting any electricity. There's nothing going into the brain other than the magnetic field. This treatment is so safe, in fact, that when we train with the therapy, we actually can practice on each other because it's so safe. There's no toxicity associated with this treatment. So that's a little bit of the background. It came out in the 90s, how it works, a little bit of the science behind it. So a lot of people want to know, well, how well does this treatment work? This has been studied quite a bit. Again, since 2008, when it's been FDA cleared, studies showed that it worked. Since then, there have been some studies that have looked at multiple sites where TMS is done. And what we find is that about 60 to 70% of people get a excellent response to this treatment, meaning that they get at least a 50% reduction in their symptoms. And about 40 to 50% of people actually go into full remission, meaning that all of their symptoms are gone. So again, most of the people who come for this treatment are going through insurance, which means they've already tried psychotherapy, they've already tried medications. And even those people who've had not much luck with those other two treatments have had those type of benefits from the treatment. At our clinic, our numbers are a little bit better than the average. You know, we have about 70 to 75% of people get at least a 50% reduction in their symptoms. And in our clinics, close to 50% of people are going to a full remission, meaning they're usually able to get off their medications or they stop their medications and their symptoms are gone. So again, if you're someone who has tried medications and haven't worked, or you've had side effects, or you've tried psychotherapy that hasn't worked, we want everyone to know that this treatment is available through your insurance, and it's covered by insurance. It is not a painful treatment, and there's really no side effects to it. So again, this may all sound too good to be true, and as someone who's been doing this for the past 10 years, so again, if those of you who don't know me or haven't seen one of these videos before, I'm a board certified psychiatrist. I've been doing TMS for over 10 years. And even when we started this 10 years ago, we saw how well it worked. And since then, it's become more and more popular treatment. Now it's covered by all insurance plans. So again, safe and effective. And the other nice thing is you don't need your doctor to refer you to this treatment. You can actually just call our center. The information is on the screen there. You can just Google NeuroSpa TMS clinics, or you can call the number that is on the screen down there. And we have intake coordinators who will get a little bit of information about what insurance plan you have, what kind of symptoms you're having, what kind of medications that you've been on. And we can usually tell you within 24 hours and whether TMS treatment is a good treatment for you. And so that is really something that we've tried to do for people, is to make it very easy to access this treatment. So again, you don't need your doctor to refer. You can just call us up and say, hey, you know, I've heard about this TMS thing. I'd like some more information. I want to see if I qualify. And we're able to give you an answer pretty quickly about whether you qualify for insurance and whether this is a good treatment for you. And then you can kind of decide what to do from there. You can come in, have a consultation with me or one of the other doctors, and ask any final questions that you have about the treatment. So that's a little bit of background about the TMS, a little refresher on, you know, where it came from, how it works, the success rate. And, you know, we're super lucky that we've had some people who've gone through TMS come onto our channel here or do videos with us in an interview to kind of give their experience. Because I can sit here and talk all day long about the science of TMS, but when TMS really works well, hearing it from someone directly who's been through it is really the best way for people to get an understanding of this treatment. So we're lucky enough to have Holly O'Connor today from Hot 1015, who's been going through the treatment. Hello, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
So glad to be here. Thank you for having me very much.
So I feel a little bit weird hosting you here. I know I've been on your podcast a couple times, and it's a little easier being the guest from my standpoint. But we do appreciate you joining us.
I'm glad.
So
You know what? If you need any pointers, let me know. No problem.
yeah, just let me know if I screw something up, and then we'll change course. But I'd like to know from you, just starting out here, what was your experience when you kind of first heard about this, and what was it like, not knowing about this to actually getting the treatment? What was that process like for you?
And I want to be totally honest in that it was a little weird because I had been vocal about my depression and anxiety on the air and about, going to therapy. And someone came to me and said, hey, have you heard of NeuroSpa TMS? They might like to work with you. And I said, okay, I absolutely haven't heard of them. But I did some digging, and just on first blush, you hear magnetic, transcranial, brain, and you're kind of like, wait, you want to put a magnet by my brain, and what now? It sounds a little bit futuristic, which is funny considering it's been around for so long now, and we not a lot of people have heard of it, obviously. So I did a good dive into the website. I went to the clinic and I met with you. And by the way, thank you for being so open and so honest with me about what to expect. And I'm one of those people that just wants more and more information. So getting that and just, you answering any of my questions so easily really helped put me at ease, because I was nervous. I don't know. It just seems like, what are you going to do with my brain? But I sat in the chair, and it's just a little, like you said, a little thing that kind of sits for me. It's on this side and it sits right here, and then it clicks. And I was like, wait, this is it. I'm gonna do this for 19 minutes and then I'm done. That's it for this first treatment. That's it. That's it. Didn't hurt. You can feel it a little bit, but it's not painful. As a matter of fact, for the 19 minutes that the treatment goes on, I think after 10 minutes, I fell asleep. That's how calming it was. So from hearing, have you heard about this? No, not at all. Wait, that sounds kind of weird, to, oh, this is not that bad. That was the journey in about 1 week's time.
Yeah, and so that's really the interesting and difficult part of this from my perspective. Again, I've been doing this for 10 years. I know like how normal and not a big deal this treatment is and how well it works. And your experience is like everyone else. They've never heard of it, and it's hard to wrap your mind around what this is, because it's such a different way to go about doing things. But then once you do a few treatments, you're like, oh, that's what it is, that's what it does, and I'm feeling better. Great. Okay. But that's the most difficult thing about trying to introduce this treatment and try to get the word out about the treatment. So having someone like you who has an audience and has been vocal about mental health treatment, it's such a gift that you're able to come on and talk about these things and kind of try to get the word out that, hey, this is a legitimate treatment, and it helped me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So,
and it does. It was really incredible.
So what was, so after the initial thing, you came in, I kind of explained it to you. It sounded pretty legit, and you started the treatment, and it wasn't a big deal. What happened next for you?
Okay, so we figured out my treatment plan basically, which was to go. You have to go. It's not just a one and done. You're going to go for a set amount of times. And I was going, I want to say probably 3 times a week. And by the end of the second week, I felt different. I just felt different. And at first, I almost didn't want to put this doc in TMS. I was like, it can't possibly work that well. I'm like, is anything else going on in my life that gave me this boost? But it felt like, and keep in mind, I always knew that I had issues with anxiety, issues with depression, and I'm not ashamed or, eek to say I'm on Zoloft, which is an anti-anxiety, antidepressant medication. And so I had been on that, and I just felt okay. But then about 2 weeks into the TMS therapy, I just felt lighter. And I'll give you two examples of how I mean that, because it's such a subtle change that you almost wouldn't know how to describe it. But how I can describe it is, after you kind of stop being depressed, it feels like life isn't foggy anymore. And you don't even realize the depth of the fog that you were walking in because you got so accustomed to walk. It's like when you need glasses and you're like, I can see okay. And then you get glasses and you're like, oh, wow, I couldn't see at all. It's like that with depression, for me anyway. So the two things that were outstanding that I noticed by the end of that second week, first of all, I was listening to music again in my car, which I know sounds odd considering I work for a top 40 radio station, and that's kind of what we do, is music, and I love music. But it seemed to me, especially over the past year and a half, it felt better to me to drive in silence. And I would explain it like this. I would say, I have a lot of noise going on around me all day, at home with my kid, at work with all of the talk we do. I just want to be quiet in the car. And I couldn't even stand to hear the music that I love. I would just, shh, we're going to be quiet. So about 2 weeks after I started TMS, I have the radio on and I was singing. And it seemed like the most natural thing in the world to do, because I always used to do that when I was, growing up and a teenager in my 20s. Somewhere around childbirth, things got a little wonky where I didn't really like singing anymore. But here I was in my car singing. And it actually gave me pause, because I thought, this is enjoyable. I haven't done this in a long time. So that was the first instance where it's like you can tell. The second instance that I knew something was working was our radio station, a little behind the scenes peek for you. So we have a long hallway, and it's like 6 radio stations, and they're all down this long hallway, and it's a gray and gray hallway. It's like dark gray and light gray, and you just have to walk all the way down this hallway to get to the Hot 101.5 studio. And every single day I walk down this hallway at least 5 or 6 times, and I always just walk down it like no big deal. I notice if there's a garbage can there, I notice there's a doorway open here, whatever. Again, about 2 weeks into treatment, and this I feel like you're gonna think I'm nuts, I skipped. Okay, who skips as an adult? As an adult woman, who is skipping at work? Apparently me. That's how joyful I was, that I was literally skipping. I was like, I hope that people didn't see me and think that I had lost my mind for a second. But I just felt like today's going to be great. I'm skipping. So between the music and skipping, I was like, this is incredible. And I want more people to at least try to have this experience like I am, where I feel better about life.
That's so amazing. I love listening to stories like that, because that's what I hear from people all day long, but it's just me and them in the room, and they're just having these amazing experiences that they haven't had really with other treatments. And I've been doing this for 10 years, and so you hear these stories all the time, because this treatment just works a little different than medications and therapy. And I don't remember if you'd had a whole lot of psychotherapy trials before, but I know that you'd tried the Zoloft. So, actually someone asked a question, Rachel asked a question about what other kind of treatments that you've had, but that story that you tell about having some different experiences, that's what all those treatments are supposed to do: the psychotherapy, the medications, and the TMS. But TMS is so targeted that it increases and this is the science behind it, a little bit of the neuroplasticity of the brain. And what that means is that people who are depressed or anxious, they're stuck in the same cycle in their mind. They're having the same thoughts and feelings all day long, every day, and they lack that ability to get into other mood states. And it's been so long since they've transitioned into them. When it starts happening, it's a surprise. You're like, oh my God, I forgot what that feels like. And you're just having these
Happiness
different
was
experiences.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can
that's
understand that.
exactly how it goes.
Oh, I wanted to answer really quickly. So I have had some psychotherapy. So psychotherapy meaning like talk therapy, right?
Yeah, seeing a counselor.
Yeah. So I started seeing a counselor last July. So I've been going for how many months is it now? Not 8, 9 months. And I'm so glad for it. And at first I was going once a week. Now I'm about every 2 weeks. But it didn't make me feel better in that way. It made me feel better in a way that I could unpack and sort of unload what was going on in my life and have someone give me another perspective on it. I would never tell someone not to go to talk therapy. I think everyone should be doing talk therapy because we all have stuff that we've never processed or we don't understand what it means in our lives. And so that really helped me, and it still does. I think that it has only been beneficial, the fact that I'm doing talk therapy and I'm, have done TMS together. And I let my therapist know, and she was like, that's great news because now you're more receptive to understanding other perspectives on your situation. So they kind of work in tandem.
And the science behind it says they really work in tandem because I don't know if we've had this discussion before, but when you go to psychotherapy, it's kind of trying to do the same thing. It's trying to kind of open you up to some new experiences and some new ways to thinking about things. Well, the TMS is literally kind of forcing your brain to do that several times per minute when you're getting the TMS. It's actually stimulating those circuits. So when you go get psychotherapy at the same time as TMS, they've done some studies where they've actually done psychotherapy during TMS, which is a little tough because the magnet's making the noise. But even if you go in between your TMS sessions to therapy, it supercharges your therapy. So like your therapist said, but there's actually science that backs that up. So I love it when people are getting TMS and they're in therapy because it's really supercharging things.
Mm-hmm. It's been great for me. And then I was able to, because I was on Zoloft. When I first came to see you, I was on 100 milligrams of Zoloft. And then throughout the course of the treatment, we were able to go down to 50. So I definitely halved it. And then I'm continuing on 50 for the current time because, well, we're in a pandemic and the world's falling apart. So it's fine.
Yeah, and it's funny because I left. We talked about this, but I encouraged you to stay on the 50 because normally someone who had the kind of response that you do, usually they would have gotten off of their medication. However, with all the stuff going on with the pandemic, we've been kind of being extra cautious and making sure that we kind of keep at least some medication around, just kind of as an insurance policy.
Right.
But yeah. So. What I've got a question here. What would you say to someone who is kind of thinking about doing TMS?
I would say if you can, you should try it because, and we've talked about this, there's no real downside. I mean, the downside would be if for some reason you're in that smaller percentage of people that for some reason or another it doesn't seem to work for. But to me, the results were so dramatic that I want to share that with people. And I'm sure you feel the same way too. And I had, my partner and my loved ones and my coworkers even, they're like, so you seem different in a good way. And that was wonderful to hear because then it wasn't just me thinking, oh man, is this real? They could see it and were able to speak on the fact that, wow, this is you, but this is a difference in you. And so if anyone feels like they may be struggling, you probably are. And I don't see the downside of trying because that's what's craziest to me is like I always knew, and that's the reason I was on Zoloft for about 4 years before I had my daughter, got off, and then I got back on in 2018. So it's been about 3 years now. And when I got back on the Zoloft, it was like, okay, this is supposed to help. So I think it's helping. And I'm managing. Like, I'm not having crazy anxious thoughts anymore, but I get them, but I'm okay. Um, and it's good that we have the medications for people that, they're working well for. But I didn't even realize the extent to which I was feeling depressed until I was no longer, if that makes sense. So if someone had asked me, oh, do you have anxiety and depression? I'd be like, yeah, but it's under control. I'm on Zoloft. It wasn't. And I think that's what makes it so difficult to talk about mental health, to treat, mental health, because it's hard to know in your own head what's normal because you're living it. So if you even think that, it might be time for me, I'm like having the same like drudging thoughts of like going to work every day or something, at least reach out and get the info.
Yeah, and that's the big thing that I try to tell people is that, there is a good portion of people who have just a home run response to this. That's just amazing and I would say life changing. And we don't know how to predict who that is. But if you're walking around taking an antidepressant medicine that either isn't fully working or giving you side effects, and you qualify to come get this through your insurance, you really have nothing to lose in terms of trying this out to see if this treatment can give you the type of home run response that you had with this. And it's super common every day. I mean, I met with 2 people today. I mean, it used to blow my mind because, I'd not seen these type of results with psychotherapy or medication for patients before I started doing this. But, now it's just commonplace. A couple times a day, I meet with people who are finishing up treatment who have had just an amazing response. And they say the things that you're saying. So, trying to get the word out about this is the most important thing, really, that people know that this is at least an option for them.
That's so cool. I love it. And I would shout it from the mountains if we had mountains in Florida. But here we are, just going live on the internet, and that's good enough for us.
Awesome. Well, any final thought on anything that you wanted to say that we didn't touch on?
Just to try it. I mean, if you're watching this, whether it's live or whether it's time delayed and you're watching it later, this evening or whenever, and you're thinking, I'm watching this for a reason, I'm feeling not right, there's no harm in reaching out, especially since it's possible that it's covered from insurance for you. And even if it's not, it's so worth it. I don't remember who I was talking to about this, but they were like, well, if I can't get it through the insurance and I have to, like pay a thing. And I'm like, but how much is your mental health worth? What is the value on the quality of your life? And for me, I would rather invest heavily in this than anything else, even a vacation, because I mean, I would go on vacations and then just the full last day of the vacation be like, oh God, I have to go back to life now. Like, that's terrible. That's a terrible way to go through life. So this is the most important thing that you can invest in, is your own mental health, your own happiness. So my whole purpose for wanting to do this is to hopefully help some people out and have a happier Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate you coming on and joining us and sharing your experience. Just having just a few people like you who have had a good result with this and have, a mouthpiece and have people who listen to you. And to be honest, I mean, your guys' show is amazing and people trust you guys because, you're real and you kind of just say it like it is. And so for you to come on and say, hey, this is what happened, this was my experience, it's invaluable.
Well, I'm glad that I can help, and I can help use the platform for a good purpose. So thank you.
All right. So thanks again for joining us. And we had a game show thing that we had scheduled, but it's a little out of date because it was about COVID and, so we're going to skip that. And,
disaster 2020. We can't.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and answer some questions that have come through here. So again, thanks for joining us, Holly, and sharing your experience. and we'll stay in touch, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay, take care. Okay, so we had a few questions that came through, and then I've got a couple questions that have been asked prior to starting here. So we'll just take a couple minutes to answer these questions. While I'm answering these questions, if anyone's watching and has some other questions they'd like to submit, we can probably get to them here. So the first question from Christina is, how successful is TMS compared to other treatments? So that's a great question. Antidepressant medication has been studied very thoroughly. And what they find is about 60% of people who take a first antidepressant, the first one they ever try, get some benefit, and about 40% of people go into remission. So that's a little bit worse than what we find with TMS, but pretty similar. But the trick is that if that first medicine doesn't work all the way or causes a side effect and you start a second medication, there was a huge study a while ago showing that each time you try a different medication, it's a little bit less likely to work, because you've already kind of tried the medication in terms of how the medication interacts with the body and the brain. And so trying a similar medication is really going to have less likely results that you're looking for. So like, let's say instead of a 60% chance of it helping, it goes down to 50 or 40%. And then after you've gotten to the third or fourth medication, it's like about a 20 or 30% chance. So TMS is at least as beneficial as medication. But again, from a standpoint of my experience with patients and a lot of other TMS providers, we will tell you that it works a little bit different than medication. Some of the things that we hear from patients in terms of the quality of the response seems to be a little bit better, but medically speaking, scientifically speaking, it's at least effective as medication, but it has a lot less side effects. In terms of psychotherapy, same thing. You still get those same type of response and remission rates. And so TMS is at least as beneficial as any of those other treatments, but the nice thing is it's got less side effects. And the science behind TMS, we actually understand a little bit better about how TMS works than it does. Sorry, the person running the YouTube live just asked me a question. It distracted me. But we actually understand a little bit better how this works than medications, because we've mapped out the circuits and we can actually see them change with TMS. So someone asked Holly a question. Leandro, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, but asked how fast did she see an improvement. I can actually, she would probably be better to answer the question, but I can tell you that she was coming 3 times a week, and it was probably about the first or second week. Oh, she's back. So
Hi.
I don't have to answer for you. Hey, welcome back.
No
So I
problem.
don't know if you heard the question, but they were wondering how quickly you started to respond to the treatment.
Oh, about 2 weeks. It was seriously, and then that's why I thought my mind was playing tricks on me a little bit, because I thought, no way, after 2 weeks or 6 treatments, I'm seeing a result. So then I thought that I was just like having a really good day. No, it was about 2 weeks of treatment. And then I think altogether, my treatment lasted for about 6 weeks. So it just, and it continued to go up, and then it kind of plateaued, and it was fantastic. So not long at all is the answer to that question.
Awesome. So I am not in control of what happens on this video thing. So you appeared. I don't know if you're going to disappear again or what, but thanks for coming back to answer the question. So
I'm out for good this time, but thank you very much for having me.
All right. Enjoy your evening. Thanks again.
Bye.
So Lauren asked, how often do I need to come for treatment? So everyone's got a little bit different protocol. Holly did an 18-session protocol, but the standard one that people go through for insurance is a 36-session protocol. Most people use all 36 sessions and get them done in a course of about 6 weeks. The nice thing about TMS is that it tends to stick. About 70% of people, 60, 70% of people, we're closer to 70% at our centers, but 70% of people, if you follow up with them at 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, and a year, which we do at our centers, they still have all the benefits they got from TMS. So you invest that 6 weeks in terms of your time to come and get the treatments, and then the benefit tends to stick. The other nice thing is that people tend to feel a little better after the treatment itself. This is a treatment that tends to sync up the brain, so when you leave, you feel usually a little sharper, a little bit less anxious, a little bit clear-headed. And that's one thing Holly mentioned, the kind of fog lifted. So most people actually enjoy coming to treatment. In fact, that's why we named our center NeuroSpa. We have a very spa-like environment. We have lighting, we have music. The staff is very friendly, and it's all about just enjoying the treatment, enjoying the process, and the treatment itself is pleasant. Usually feel better after it's done. And so the whole experience is not necessarily a burden in terms of coming in and getting treatment. So most people come 5 times a week, Monday through Friday, but there's quite a few people who end up coming 3. And the amount of sessions you get can vary between 18, 36 sessions, depending on things. So let me make sure we got to all of the questions. There was a question here about getting treatment during this COVID crisis. So for us, we're following all the CDC guidelines. The nice thing is that these treatment chairs are in their own individual room. And depending on which clinic you're coming to, most people can come into the clinic and go and sit in their treatment chair without touching anything or without being within 6 feet of anyone. And then the technician just places the magnet. Everyone's wearing masks, gloves, and you get the treatment. So no one's around you during the treatment. They're just kind of keeping an eye on you. And then when you're done, again, you can get up and just walk right out of the clinic. So really, and we really encourage all patients to wear masks. All our staff are wearing masks. So it's really, really low risk in terms of the coronavirus exposure. And we've stayed open during the whole coronavirus initial phase as well, always following the guidelines. There's a good question here about getting off medications. So the official recommendation usually is that people who are on medication, so anything that you're on, you can come into treatment, you stay on it, we start the treatment, and then we see how it goes for you. So TMS itself is a good antidepressant treatment. So just as if you were on Prozac and you were going to start and another medication effexor, then you wouldn't necessarily stay on the Prozac as the effexor started working. So there's a lot of people who get a good benefit from the treatment, and like in Holly's case, it's obvious that they don't need to be on that much medication, and actually being on that much medication while you're getting this other antidepressant treatment can cause side effects. And so we usually reduce people's medicines, and a lot of people end up getting off of medication. And again, we follow up with them at 3 months, 6 months, and a year, and most of them are able to stay off the medications, and the treatment tends to stick. So it's really an individualized decision and choice. Everyone has a different experience with medications. Some people haven't been on them very long. They don't like to take the medication. Other people might have been on their medicine for 20 years. So the idea of stopping it is a big decision for them. So we work with everyone individually for that. Sorry, I'm trying to read something. My eyesight is going. We had another question from Anthony, I think, I'm not sure if I pronounced your name right as well, asking about kind of what I just said, taking medications. I don't like the way that I feel, hate the way that I feel. Can I do TMS and stop meds? And so the answer is that's a good possibility, from what I just said, depending on how well you do with the treatment. But I can't think of the last person who came in who was on multiple medications who didn't leave on less medications than they came in on. And again, I've had several people who've come in on 3 or 4 high doses medications who've been able to get off their medications. And as we follow up with them, the treatment effects stick quite well. So I think that we pretty much covered everything. Obviously, there's a question here about insurance. If I don't have insurance, can I pay out of pocket for TMS? Absolutely. But remember, every major insurance carrier covers this treatment. So it is covered by insurance. The question is whether you meet the criteria. And if you don't meet the criteria, it depends on if you've tried medications, if you've tried therapy, how many medicines you've tried. Every plan is different. So we can give you an individualized answer on that. So again, to wrap things up, I want to thank Holly O'Connor again for joining us and sharing her experience. It's so valuable to have people who have had a good response to this treatment come and share their experiences. I want to remind everyone that we will be doing a live every week, and we're actually going to start bringing in other healthcare professionals, mental health professionals, alternative treatments like exercise and yoga to try to increase the benefit that this channel can give to people in terms of their mental health. I'll also still be doing some YouTube lives and interviewing special guests as well. So remember that if you're feeling worried, stressed, depressed, if medications aren't working, side effects, it's really easy to get in touch with us. We have dedicated people who literally all they do is answer the phone, talk to people. They love helping people. They want to talk to you about what's going on and see if they can help you either with TMS, or even if not, we have some other referrals that we can give you if for some reason TMS isn't going to be the right treatment for you. So again, if you enjoyed this video, remember, please remember to subscribe, to like the video, and we'll keep trying to put out some good content for you guys to increase your awareness about mental health treatments, information about TMS, and we'll kind of go from there. So again, this is Dr. Nate Upshaw, Medical Director at NeuroSpa, psychiatrist, and everyone take care. Signing off for now. Thanks.